My journey from uh, being a professor at Governor State, it didn't last long. I then became an administrator for Goddard College, a small college out of Plainfield, Vermont. They had an external degree program, master's degree program in Chicago, and they needed an administrator to run it. I flew to Vermont, they hired me. I quit Governor State and immediately became a work at home professor because that allowed me to have a business on the side. So working as a director of a graduate program for Goddard College out of Plainfield, Vermont, I then decided to venture into the fast food business. I bought a store fully equipped at 1215 East 87th Street that was a bankrupt fried chicken store. I changed the name to Pop's Fried Chicken, my nickname, and opened up a fried chicken and fish business for 4 years. It was a great business. It was the first time in my life in the 70s that I had a six-figure income. It allowed me to have four automobiles, a summer home, a home in Chicago, and to take 6 vacations a year.
Wow.
It also allowed my blood pressure to go up. and my,
Did you have to relocate to work the Vermont job, or you
no,
just worked
the
remote?
program was a Great Lakes program, and I was the regional director, so all the meetings were held in Chicago. It was what they call the external degree program, University Without Wall program back in those days. And I had to go to Vermont 3 times a year for a staff meeting. And, all expenses paid, so that was a good experience. And at that time, I'd never been to Vermont, so it was a very, very interesting experience. So interesting, and so few African Americans in Vermont. The first time I went for a staff meeting, I went to Montpelier, a town not far from there where the airport is. I happened to be walking down the street, kind of looking up, and because there are no African Americans in town, they thought I was lost. A couple of people asked could they help me, was I lost, because they'd never seen African Americans walking around in town. So it was a unique experience, a faculty that had probably 3 African Americans on it out of about 50, but a great job because it allowed me to work that job and run a business for 4 or 5 years.
All right. Pops, what was it called?
Pop's Fried Chicken and
Pops
Fish,
Fried Chicken and Fish.
1215 East 87th Street. After my blood pressure went up and I got very tired and burnt out, I worked the business 12 to 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, 362 days a year. After about 4 years, I was totally sick and tired of it. I sold the business. I then went and taught at a college for a short period of time. And then I really pursued my career. I had to be a school principal for at least 2 years before I got fully certified as a superintendent. So in 1978, I was hired in School District 144 in Hazel Crest in Markham, Illinois, as an elementary school principal. I was a successful principal for 2 years and was promoted to assistant superintendent after being a principal 2 years. Principal job was probably one of the most enjoyable professional jobs I ever had in my life. I had elementary school from kindergarten to 6th grade. At the time I took the job, I think I was 38 years old, 6'2", with small elementary school kids absolutely adored me. This was before the days of bad kids. I could simply clap my hand and kids would jump and run, unlike today. So it was an experience that I enjoyed. The school population was about 50-50, half African American and half white. My teaching staff was 75% white, 25% black. According to what my feedback I got from the teachers, they liked my teaching style, my discipline style. I followed a principal who did not discipline, and I'm a disciplinarian. I immediately got the discipline together and I became the greatest principal in town. Consequently, in 2 years, I was promoted to assistant superintendent in charge of the psychologists, social workers, and special education programs. When I took the job, my boss said he was planning to retire soon. So after I was waiting for him after 5 years. He hadn't retired. I asked and told him I was very interested in his job when he retired, but it took him another 5 years to retire. So after his retirement, I became superintendent of School District 144. I was the first African American to ever be appointed to that position. It was a great job, 2 secretaries, 5 assistants, automobile furnished, and a handsome income. I thought it was the dream job of my life because it paid more money. More people kissed up to me than any job I've ever had. And I was looked upon as the big man in the district. I was the CEO. In less than 6 months, I found out the job was an absolute nightmare. The amount of politics, the amount of pressure, dealing with unions. I very, very seldom got around to dealing with education because having a $25 million budget, having a staff over 600 people, 75% of them non-African Americans, and having many people believing that they can do my job much better than I can do made it a huge headache. I first responded to the headache, but then after I began to count my bank balance, I decided I was no longer going to sweat the job. I was going to begin to prepare myself in the next 2 years for retirement. The next 2 years of working as a superintendent of schools was good. I simply didn't let the pressure get to me, but many nights I didn't go to sleep quickly. So I knew that after 3 years, I needed to retire. I was fastly approaching 55 years old, and one of my dreams was to retire at 55 and travel the world. At 54 and a half, they brought out a new retirement plan that would allow me to retire and get the kind of pension I had dreamed of. When I got the notice, I had 1 week to make a decision. I was able to make a decision to retire in 24 hours. It was probably one of the happiest days of my life.
Perfect timing.
The timing was perfect. I was out of debt. Both of my kids were out of graduate school, and I was ready to live.
Were you still married at this time?
I was divorced. Unfortunately, I got a divorce in 1983 before I became superintendent. And this was 93. I'd been divorced 10 years then. I'd been a bachelor for 10 years with no intentions of ever getting married again. June of 93, I retired. I asked that the district, my bosses not give me a retirement program, whatever gifts they had to make them in the form of a check or cash. They made it a very, very nice check, servants pay, and I was able to retire at 55 years old, a healthy and happy man. Amazingly enough, on retirement, I began to sleep 8-9 hours a night without interruptions. My consumption of cocktails dropped very low, and I began to plan trips, and I began to live the life that I'd always dreamed of, not working. What I didn't realize was that I'd had some kind of job since I was 10 years old. And the first year was very rough, waking up, not going to work. So rough that I got a job temporarily as an interim superintendent of North Chicago School District. Paid very well. Because I was receiving a pension, I could only work 6 months. I did that 6 months. While working, I decided I was out near a boat harbor that it was time to have a yacht. One of my dreams was to own a yacht and live on it. So the summer of 94, I bought a 38-foot yacht, Chris Craft, 381 Catalina, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, a kitchen, dining room, and bought it to Waukegan where I lived on it during the summer until I finished working as an interim superintendent of North Chicago Public Schools. After working there 6 months, I decided it was time to rest. I took a break for a year and decided I was bored. I needed something else to do. I then took a job as a cooperative coordinator for Chicago Public Schools. I did that for a year and a half and decided it was time to retire again. I quit that job, took a break for a few months, and then I got an offer to be a principal for a charter school. This was in 2099. And because I enjoyed kids, I did that for a year and a half until I got tired. And finally I retired and said I wasn't going to work anymore. So in 2001, I retired. I decided that it was time to travel and it was time to relax and do some of the things I had on my bucket list.